Morning, everybody. I'm Jeremy Rudolph. I am the general manager at Goldcast. I'll introduce us in we'll do introductions here in just a minute. Just wanted to let you know it's actually been changed now, but in the agenda originally, the description was wrong on the app. So on the website, it was correct. It is corrected now in the app, so just wanted to give folks a heads up. We're going to be chatting about how these two top marketing leaders are sharing how they're evolving trusted and regulated brands in this ever-changing industry. So kind of piggybacking on the previous session, we're going to just learn key insights in a couple different areas, including scaling authentic client experiences, balancing tradition and transformation to lead through rapid change, and then also future-proofing your organization. So thanks for bearing with us as we get that change made. As I mentioned, Jeremy Rudolph, General Manager, Goldcast, Banking, Financial Services, and Insurance. We are an AI-powered video content platform for B2B marketers to create, amplify, and measure video content. So this really starts by creating engaging webinars, digital events, and podcasts, and then leveraging AI to slice and dice that into short-form video clips, blogs, social posts to share across different channels. We do have a booth in the next room over there. Feel free to come visit us after the chat here. But I'm going to flip it over here to Melody to introduce herself as well, and then we'll go to Jerry next.
Awesome. My name's Melody Paul. I work with Neuberger Berman. I'm our content marketing manager. Handle all of our global campaigns, really looking at our strategy on a holistic level, let alone working with all of our channels individually. So lots falls into that, but throw it to Jerry.
Thank you. Jerry Stiedaman. I am Director of International Growth at NinjaTrader, which is a role I've had for 8 weeks now. Prior to that, I did spend almost 15 years at a brand agency, VSA, who is here. And in my role there, I oversaw CME Group and Northern Trust, which are both very much legacy industries that have had to adapt and change over the past decade plus. And prior to that, I was a fully licensed agent, and I worked in the insurance industry. So I've kind of sat in all different angles and all different sides, both from being the agent. I worked in corporate marketing and insurance, agency experience for the last 14 years, and now I'm back on the client side, working at NinjaTrader, which is an online futures broker based here in Chicago that was recently purchased by Kraken about 5 months ago. So that's my background.
Awesome, thank you. And two very different perspectives here, one from the brand side, one from the agency side. I think Jerry can bring a little bit of that into the mix, so I think that should be helpful for most of the folks in the audience. I wanted to kick it off with a question for maybe you, Melody, and then we can go to Jerry next. But just how are you seeing traditional financial services brands evolve their marketing ways that feel modern and innovative, but also staying kind of meeting the industry's high bar for that trust and compliance? Like, what are you seeing there?
Oh gosh, we're all doing our best, right? I feel like we're trying to kind of keep up with regulation in mind, but we're trying to keep up with the new things that are out there and figuring out how we can better engage clients, prospects, the general public, while also, like you said, trying to maintain who we still are as a brand, and we're not, abandoning that, voice in any way. And so I think, looking at, metrics were mentioned before, but, people don't really love emails anymore, for example, and it's a black hole. And so if we're not meeting people there, well, social, LinkedIn, things like that really grab a lot of attention. And so how can we, stream or aim more of our content towards those mediums that really seem to be grabbing people's attention, and trying to just kind of constantly stay in a position where we can move and shift as our data keeps, showing us where people are actually looking and engaging.
And then trying to stay compliant in this age of AI, right? There's
Yes.
all sorts of, I think we heard in the last session, there's all sorts of new committees that are being formed, and even internally, probably within your organization, trying to figure out who's on those committees, what the processes are, right? And kind of trying to navigate that simultaneously, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say, I was thinking after the last panel, I feel like we're doing our best as an organization to figure out where, AI can help us and where we should be using it as a tool. But, to the point that was made, it's not like we're putting something in AI and then just throwing it out. That's not, we still very much are reviewing and editing, and there's always that like really in-depth human touch with it. So maybe it helps us, take a 4-hour, morning of a conference and make it into some sort of summary, but we still have people, who were actually there, really deducing and making the points as we would, just because, we're not at a point where we can just trust AI to do all of that for us and capture the nuances of conversation, let alone the whole regulation piece. So I feel like much like a lot of people, we're trying to figure out how we can use that tool more. And I think there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of possibility there, but it's definitely still growing and evolving.
Right. Well, thank you, Jerry. How about yourself? Would love to hear your perspective from an agency side.
Yeah, can you kind of reframe the question again?
Yeah, just in terms of how are you seeing traditional financial services brands evolve their marketing in ways that just feel modern and innovative, but also staying compliant, simultaneously staying compliant at the same time?
Yeah, I think one thing that we've noticed a trend, certainly on the agency side, is the need to modernize a lot of these legacy industries. About 10 years ago, we did work with Northern Trust as they were looking to kind of modernize and become more of a digital-first bank, which is not easy to do when you have a bank they struggled with the idea that Northern Trust was your grandfather's bank. Their logo, their story, everything kind of felt a little bit old, a little bit dated. So they needed to modernize. And I think you're starting to see that digital-first messaging that came, that they worked on, CME Group worked on it as well, to kind of, we're not just an in-person exchange, but we're truly a digital, an international exchange that's available everywhere. You see it across the board, and I think a lot of it is this modernization and making sure that you're tech forward, because people don't interact with banks by going into the branches as much anymore. And as we continue to move forward, you have tools like GPT that are truly changing the way that people interact with everything. ChatGPT just announced on Monday that they're going to start integrating apps directly within that experience. So in the old model of we need to have paid advertising, we need to have SEO and helping with clicks, people aren't clicking as much anymore.
Right.
People are getting all their answers within their LLMs that they're going to, and you need to make sure that when they do come to you, they see a more modern and more thorough environment, whether that's in-app push notifications, because to your point, they don't want to necessarily read emails.
Yeah.
So it's a constant battle, I think, in the industry.
And generative engine optimization as well. Everybody, I think, is trying to figure that out simultaneously, right? Marketers have really more data than ever with these tools, but what tools or tactics have you kind of seen out there to help you better connect with evolving client expectations?
Yeah, I think one of the tools that we use, certainly in my current role and also before, is doing customer research and target market research has gotten much, much faster and much, much more efficient. If you also want to do a competitive audit, rather than say, okay, this is going to take 8 weeks to do a thorough competitive audit, it's really going out there and say, okay, this is who we think our target market is. Tell me what the competitors are doing in this space, or this is a market we want to go into. What's going on over there? What regulatory environments and rules should we be looking at? What are these additional brokers? What are they doing? Give me some links. Give me some ideas on where we could possibly play in. So one of the things that it does do, and I think it does do efficiently, is really speed up the strategic process to really give ideas and hypothesis that then you can go out and test with qual and quant and make sure you're going in the right direction. So it's not just sitting at your desk and doing the Google search and oh, I'm going to go to this website, or I'm going to go to this website. ChatGPT and some of these other models are really, really good at kind of distilling down instantly what's happening. I actually, in my current role, I have a daily summary that comes my way. and lets me know what's going on internationally with the competitors, anything that comes across that I should be aware of. So it's things like that that kind of make sure you're on top of what's happening and what's going on in your competitive zone.
Have you implemented that like via an AI agent, or how do you get that daily summary? Just out of curiosity for the crowd here.
Yeah, it's with my own ChatGPT instance.
Okay,
So
cool.
I've been training that since day one. And this is the kind of stuff I'm interested in. This is the kind of information I'd like back, and then give me 3 or 4 bullets on things that would be actionable or things I should be aware of. Or if this is just noise, I have it say, no, this is just kind of noise. You don't need to pay attention to it.
Got it. Yeah. So Melody, how about you? What tools or tactics are you using in this kind of ever-changing landscape?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I agree with most of what Jerry said. I do not miss the, Google search days and weeks time spent looking at competitors. So I definitely, again, going back to it is a tool and we should be using it. It can do all of these things for us. I think we've been trying to figure out how to kind of actually like your example of what you get in your mornings, try to think about, what are we able to build and for different teams, for different, channels or region, building the AI tool itself so that whatever we're feeding in, that output that we're getting is getting closer and closer to that end product that we're looking for, and spending, it's not the Google searching anymore, but it is spending the time with the AI model itself to hone it, to train it, to make it, closer to what we want, so that ideally at some point we would get, closer to being able to feed in information and get an almost, ready result at the end. So I think, we're very in line with a lot of what Jerry said as well.
Yeah, and at Neuberger, are you guys, if you can share, are you guys using a proprietary search tool, or are you using kind of something that's out there on the market that folks might know about?
Yeah, we have kind of our internal, it's NB GPT, so it is an
Sure.
open AI tool, but for our firm. And that's part of also back to the regulatory, security piece, I would
Right.
say, because of the industry, obviously, we have to be extra, careful of
Yeah.
what information is getting put into this tool, and making sure, to keep an eye on that, but still wanting to have this tool, help us and grow and develop. So, yeah.
Yeah, and before the panel, we were chatting outside about not only how Neuberger's doing digital, but also how you bring this into the physical world. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the donut campaign.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a donut campaign happening in Asia right now, and I think that's a really fun example of something that we were able to look at what the market would really gravitate towards and grab attention there. And so I keep saying I would love to see the donut truck roll down our street at some point, but that's just, I would say that's an example of being able to really look at what is going to be most effective in this market and how do we stand out and grab a little bit more attention. And so we're trying to figure out then how we can do that in all of our regions.
So in addition to AI on the digital side, you guys are running activations to get people more emotionally, I guess, connected to your brand, at least with their sweet tooth, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say another example is that we actually, Neuberger sponsored a soccer team
wow.
in Italy. So that's one of our newest ones as well. And it's for Como FC. So it's just another region-specific example of where are people, where is the attention, and how can we also, get involved a little bit more. So.
Sure, yeah. Go ahead, Jim.
I had something I want to kind of add is when we're thinking about AI and LLM and how that helps us, what you also need to understand and also be aware of is we're not sitting down and doing the competitive audits and taking a look at our competitors and seeing what they're doing. Neither are your prospects and your customers. They're going into LLM and saying, hey, I'm looking for a mortgage, I'm looking for a loan, I'm looking for this and that. And for our brands in this space, it's no longer about being searchable, it's about being mentionable and conversational and making sure ChatGPT can explain what you do in a simple and a clear way. So it's really important to always make sure that everything you're putting out there has clarity of message, it's written for a human audience, and it stays on brand. It's no longer about just pushing out as much as we can and keyword stuffing, because they're saying, hey, ChatGPT, tell me about Neuberger Berman. And ChatGPT is going to spit out a sentence or two. they're not necessarily going to your websites anymore. By the time they get to your website, they may already be 80% of the way through the sales cycle. So it's one of the last things they look at, whereas 5 years ago, would be where they start. So make sure you're always staying on brand in your tone and your messaging, because if you're all over the place, you're going to create confusion within the language learning models, and they're not going to be able to summarize what you do. Think of them as a good referral partner, where you're asking them a question, and they're going to say, yeah, you need to go to Neuberger or Berman because X, Y, and Z. Test it yourself. Ask questions to whatever you're using for your language learning model, and have it describe your business and have it describe your company, and see what it comes back with. Because those are going to almost be the new web pages and the home pages, I think, going forward, especially with the app stuffing within ChatGPT. You're going to be able to shop on Target or do Canva or look up real estate listings right within ChatGPT, so that's not going to show up on your web traffic. That's not going to show up on anything else. So that's really where I see things moving towards. So what we're using as tools for ourselves, our prospects are also using those tools more and more.
No, I think I recently saw something on GPT and a lot of these other LLM tools that essentially where 40% of the data that's coming in is coming from like Reddit and actual people talking to each other, right? So it's actual sentiment about specific topics or specific areas. So how can you, it's kind of taking what we were talking about earlier, right? How do you take that physical, that physical activation in that, in the real world, right? And then tie it into the digital piece, right? So it can be pretty powerful, right? It's just a whole new way, and it's a mind shift, right? To bring this legacy into more modernized way of getting activated with a brand. Last question before we take it to the audience with questions, but if you were building, and this one may take a little bit for each of you to answer, but let's start with Melody, and then we'll go to Jerry, and then we'll kick it to the audience for any questions for us. But if you were building a modern financial marketing org from scratch today, what would you do differently than 5 years ago?
I mean, so many things. I feel like I almost want Jerry to answer first just because.
I heard somebody on the earlier panel say that they're actually looking at people kind of right out of college, because I think they have a different and a unique skill set where they understand that the generative AI and language learning models and everything else is a useful tool. And they can learn and they can understand things a lot quicker. And AI isn't, everybody's heard this phrase, AI isn't going to take anybody's job, but people know how to use AI will. And that's very much true. People that we bring on board at NinjaTrader, they're using language learning models to kind of learn about the futures industry. Hey, tell me what are futures is a big question, because people who come in don't know. And if you ask that to ChatGPT, you're going to get very simple, quick answers. So people that understand that it's not a threat, and it's something that can help get coherent and clear messages to market. So I'd be looking at the people who have that skill set. They may not necessarily be younger, but people who have kind of embraced it as a necessary tool that we need to use. Because speed to market is always best. You need to make sure that it's the right message out there yet. But people who are, I don't want to say Luddites, but people who are very comfortable with how quickly things are changing.
Yeah, and also like the folks that understand strategy in addition to being able to leverage the models that are out there, right?
Yes, and using the ChatGPTs as that big strategy
Absolutely.
Support.
Right.
You don't take it as gospel. Always ask for citations and links when you're having to do strategy for you, because it can hallucinate. And you don't want to have a hallucination go out as being the truth. So always make sure that you're asking like, hey, that's a great stat, where'd you get it from? Or make sure you're always giving me citations and sources, just like when we were all in college and had to write papers and cite our sources. Treat your GPTs in the same way.
Yeah, and I'd add on to that, especially if any of you have any interns, right? Ask them where they got that information.
Absolutely. I had the word like nimble coming to mind as you were talking. I feel like that's it's necessary to be able to know how to use these tools, be evolving. I feel like that's kind of what we're always looking for that and talking about that, and trying to push ourselves into new spaces. But also what you mentioned, Jeremy, about the strategy versus just like, this is what it said, great, that works for you, right? I feel like we have been working with some of our younger employees too that are very adept at using these tools, yes, but looking for the where did you get this? Okay, where is it actually grounded? And making sure that we are fact checking, we are, making sure that we're using accurate data as we're informing our strategies. So
Yeah, citing your sources,
yes,
right?
please and thank you.
So I'm going to open it up to the audience for questions for these folks here on the panel. Would love to get any questions from y'all.
I'm wondering for ChatGPT, does it gets information from Reddit, gets information from social media? Does it go into your website and search it like a bot does?
It will take a look at all sources it can find on the internet. Some are locked out from Reddit or from ChatGPT now, but it'll take a look at everything. One of the biggest sources for ChatGPT to cite information from is Wikipedia. So if you don't have a Wikipedia page for your company or your brand, make sure that you do, and make sure that the information on there is accurate and up to date, because that is truly public. There's no login. If it's a private site, it can't get to it, but it will pull from all different sources. So it's like a massive search tool.
Hi, good morning. Love this topic. Thank you very much. Question for the panel. As someone who works at an agency using, ChatGPT or Waldo or other models to get information quickly, amazing. And we find, though, that there's a lot of general, information that we pull. Mm-hmm. And so we have a model where we have a screening for inclusivity, cultural sensitivities, things of that nature, because sometimes those are an afterthought. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious what kind of things you guys use or have in place that address something like cultural sensitivities, inclusivity, those kinds of things.
And the first thing that comes to mind is the little bit of the human touch thing that I mentioned earlier, and not just putting it in and trusting it to come out. I feel like we always, two extensions of this. I feel like one is what we're feeding into it, making sure where is that data coming from? Oh, this is coming from, a head marketing professional in, our Tokyo office, and, it's being fed in specifically as a reference point for the tool. But also then it's not, like I said, it's not just getting spit out of the tool and being used. We're definitely making sure that we have somebody on our APAC team looking at it and making sure, does this actually sound right? Is this hitting the mark? I think it just really comes back to that human component. I know we all want to talk about AI and how great it is, but I feel like the human component, to your point earlier, Jerry, is not going away. It's definitely, I feel like, still the key, most important point.
I also think it's like globalization with localization with that, almost like that brand voice, right? Where you can localize it to the specific market, but be able to fine tune the tone of voice, the writing rules to that specific market. Because the Asia market might be different than the European market, which might be different from the North American market, right? So being able to kind of have those different segments in there from, again, a global perspective to keep it on brand, but also having those different kind of localized, what's the word I'm looking for, tweaks, right, to kind of give you the output that you're looking for.
I think another thing to keep in mind, it all comes down to prompt engineering, knowing how you're going to ask those questions and training your GPT or whatever you're using over time, and saying things like, hey, when you're serving up results like this, always make sure that you're considering X, Y, and Z. So eventually it gets trained to understand that that's something that it always needs to take into consideration before it gives you a response or before it gives you an answer. Because out of the box, it's just going to spit facts. and not necessarily filter out or take into consideration some of the softer things. So that all comes down to prompt engineering.
I think we might have time for one more question.
You guys already talked about this a little bit, but as a mortgage broker in Milwaukee, right now 100% of our business is referral based, and our biggest initiative is direct to consumer. And so in the past 6 months to a year, we focused a lot of time and money on SEO. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on the difference between our SEO initiative versus being found on chat? Is it the type of content you're producing? Is it the frequency of content?
You want me to go first? Yeah. I think one thing that you need to keep in mind is SEO is still effective and important, but the tables are switching more to people asking questions within the LLM. So if you don't have the ability in-house, there are a number of agencies that can help on LLM optimization and making sure that some of the other sources. LLM is not about the volume of content that's going out there. It's going to take a look at the content that's available and look for clarity of message and making sure that it can understand what you're putting out there. Because if you put out something every day and it's pretty much the same thing over and over, GPT is not going to care. It's still going to summarize down to a single point. So yes, there are people who are still going to go to Google or Bing or whatever else, and SEO is important for that. But for language learning models, SEO is not as important. So I would recommend looking at some agencies that specialize in LLM optimization and making sure that you're covering both sides, because both sides are going to be important, especially LLM going forward.
Absolutely agree. I also think this is going on a slight tangent from something you said earlier. I feel like there used to be, the approach of we have to get more content into market. We have to really flood the field. We really have to, make sure we're constantly, something comes out every week or even every day, depending what it is. And I think we have pulled back from that to make sure not only is that not sustainable on a team capacity front, but we're really trying to pull back and say okay, what is that clear, concise message? How are we making sure that we are driving that home? And whether it's this research in-depth white paper or it's the social post
Right.
that people click on, the deduced bare minimum point at the end of the day is still the same. So we're trying to meet whichever audience that caters to, but being a lot more concise and intentional about what we're saying instead of just taking the flood approach that I feel like maybe used to be more common.
Yeah, and it's not always how you do respond. Sometimes it's how you don't respond.
Yes.
Right? So I think we're at time here. I just wanted to thank the Digital Marketing Financial Summit folks for inviting us onto stage, and my gracious panelists here, Melody and Jerry, for joining me. And really appreciate all you folks taking the time. So thank you.
Great job.